Gary, can you hear us, sir?
Do I look better in my glasses or without, guys?
I'd say without.
Okay.
May I ask Gary a question, sir? Can you hear me?
Gary is having a
I
hard
don't think
time
he can
hearing
hear
us
me,
too because
sir.
Gary is his audio was muted, but Gary, can you hear us now?
Well, see, it's very important that he be able to hear us. There are only four of us.
Gary, you're able to hear us. If not, you got to X out and come back in or turn off the mute button. But I want to welcome everybody to the world according to Ben Stein. We are joined tonight by America's lawyer, the infamous, the notorious, Washington, D.C.'s original fly in the ointment, Larry.
That's very good. I like that. That's good. That's good.
What happened?
Larry Klayman. I wish I had thought of that, but when you in the old days, before they fully tarnished Larry on Wikipedia, that's actually what it said, that he was Washington, D.C.'s original fly in the ointment. Now it
was also gadfly. They like that.
Wait a minute, Larry. If you are, then what was Bill Lirac? Wasn't he? I thought he was the original fly in the ointment. Bill Lirac.
Well, I hope to be more than a fly, but I'll take what I can get. Right. Okay.
And of course,
we have a very handsome young man.
He is. Gary is having issues with his audio, I believe, at the moment.
Don't pray for him.
But of course, we welcome America's humble servant, actor, writer, provocateur, legend, saint, sinner, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. Welcome, sir.
It is my pleasure, I assure you.
And to get the show kicking,
I want to pray for our friend Gary to get his sound.
Yeah, we do have to pray for Gary to get his sound. But before that, before we get to Gary and his sound, and he gets it fixed, we got to continue with the show. So one of the things I wanted to, the biggest thing that we have going on right now, or the biggest story of the last couple of days that doesn't appear to be a story, but if it was a Republican president, I could guarantee you it would be a story, was that Joe Biden fell up the stairs. I don't
understand how do you do that?
It happens to people. I've fallen upstairs, but their excuse for it was that the wind blew him up the stairs.
That's very funny. That's really funny. The wind blew a grown man up the stairs.
Maybe he passed some wind and it, catapulted him up the stairs.
And Ben, you wanted Larry on, but yes, the wind blew him up the stairs, and I couldn't help but think, can you imagine this, Ben Stein or Larry Klayman? The wind blew him up the stairs. The wind made him crumble. And what are Xi Jinping and Putin going to do to this man?
Well, say he fell. Excuse the lack of grammar.
If you are younger, you get the answer.
He collapsed.
You're younger, so you go first.
Yeah, he collapsed. And I suggest he's probably in bed today because he hurt himself and he was faking it that he was okay, because that was a nasty collapse, I'll tell you.
Yeah, I've had that exact thing happen to me at the airport, and it's a very scary feeling. Stairs are scary things. I don't understand why the President of the United States cannot have a smooth service to walk across to get onto his plane. Somebody screwed up badly there in the White House Transportation Office. And I frankly do not blame Mr. Biden for that. I think I blame the people in the White House Transportation Office who clearly were not on top of their game. Or maybe this was their game, but somebody screwed up.
Ben, there's only so much you could hide. I think there's something very interesting that you had taught me years ago that I would imagine almost nobody knows, is that when presidents used to fly abroad, they would go a few days early to catch up, to be up to speed on the time. And we know Trump didn't do that. He could be anywhere and be awake. But we're talking about a president. What if he has to fly abroad, man? What are we going to send him a week and a half in advance?
Well, I don't think he's going to last that long. We don't wish him any harm, obviously, physically, but I don't think he'll live another 6 months. I mean, he's in bad shape. And Ben, you're being kind. You're a very kind person, but it has, in my view, has nothing to do with White House advanced teams or anything else. I mean, the guy just is physically incapable of walking upstairs. That's the bottom line.
Well, but I agree with that, but I also agree with the fact that the White House Transportation Officer advanced team, as you so aptly call them, should have figured out a better solution to his boarding the plane problem. But I think
What are
it
they
has
supposed
been
to do? Have
well
a
known.
crane?
Yeah, hoist him up on a pulley.
Have one of those
I think it
electric.
has been well known, I'm under the impression, that he is not physically well. That he has not been physically well for some time. And he really should not have been allowed to run for president by whatever powers there are in the Democrat Party, if there are any powers besides some crazy people. But yeah, I think something's wrong with him, and God bless him. I hope I'm wrong. I hope he's in good shape. I hope he learns and becomes a stronger, better, more well-adjusted person. But I don't think he's in good health.
Ben, you just gave me an idea. So on the side, you know those chairs that they have that go on like a railing, and they, you sit on it, and it's like a
Everyone tells me I should get that for my house, but
he should get that for Air Force One as he's boarding a plane. They should put a
Yes.
little chair on the side and have Biden strap him in for dear life and have him slide up the
Yeah,
up
or
the
maybe
mountain.
maybe Dr. Jill can carry him up the stairs. I mean, maybe she can do it, you know?
But Ben, this is really we're talking about, we're joking about this, but this is very scary. The idea we
Very,
have a
very
president
scary.
that we have a president that's and welcome back, Gary Collins. I hope you could hear us now.
I can. If anyone can tell me why YouTube will mute sound after watching it on my laptop, it does it. I had to switch laptops, or I had to reboot the.
But you
No.
could hear us now.
Yeah, I couldn't hear you guys. It was.
So I want to welcome you to the conversation. We are talking about Joe Biden falling up the stairs, but it literally being metaphorically sort of the nation falling off a cliff, him falling up the
No.
stairs.
Oh, no. With all due respect, the metaphor is even more perfect, or nearly perfect, because here's a guy who really should never have even been in the Senate in the first place, and he has managed to fall up the stairs, fall from place to place, and finally winding up in the premier civil service job in the world, with basically no talent at all, except to stay silent in his mother's basement, while the real machers in the or macherettes in the Democrat Party moved around him. He fell upstairs.
Ben, what was that movie? You're obviously a famous
Being there was called Being There.
with Peter Sellers.
Yeah, Being There.
Right.
Where he
Ben,
was
I
a
want to
guard-
get back to that question.
He
I
was
had,
the gardener
because-
to a very rich man who somehow became president himself.
Ben, I want to get back to that question. Gary, Ben, you probably knew this, Gary, because you have been in public service, but I didn't know this until Ben told me this, that in the old days, presidents would get the places 3 or 4 days ahead of schedule. So they
Secretaries
could
of
get,
State too. Anybody negotiating anything important.
so they could get adjusted to the time change and,
Right.
get their bearings straight. With somebody like Joe Biden, I mean, I'm not kidding right now. He would need a week and a half. I mean,
yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I don't hold that against him. I mean, God bless him. He's not a young man. I know I'm not a young man either. It takes a lot of energy to adjust to changing climates, changing time zones. It's exhausting. I know. I've been an expert witness in several very complex securities lawsuits that were international in scope, and I've had to deal with very complex calculations. At least they're complex to me, and I had to have a few days in advance to recuperate. Had to, and I think Joe Biden certainly has to. And God bless him if he does, if he's doing it. Is he really doing it, or is he trying to pretend like we can play gutsball and doesn't have to really go out there and fight like everyone else?
Well, Ben, I think it's going to be a long time before Joe Biden meets with any foreign leaders. I don't think that even these crazy leftist, rabid Democrats are going to expose him to somebody like Putin or President Xi in China or Kim in Korea. I mean, if they see this guy in action, so to speak, or shall we say non-action, this will be the death knell of the United States.
Why would he do it? Why would he allow them to do it? I mean, why can't he always just stay in his mother's basement? He got away with it. The media lets him get away with it. Why can't he just stand his life? And by the way, I have I always forget. I think 33-year-old son, wonderful kid, very very smart kid, super smart kid, excellent video game player, superb. Why don't he and President Biden just hang out in the basement playing video games? Why should he disturb himself?
Right.
Gary, what say you?
Well, I'll tell you this: Biden doesn't even know what a video game is. He would go to the record player and wonder why the video game isn't working. I mean, let's be honest. This was the Democrats' ploy from the day one. They needed a lackey. They needed someone to get in office so they could run their very radical agenda. Biden was the man. They already knew the guy was greatly incapacitated. The guy's never been a genius. I mean, let's be honest. The sharpest
Never been
ever
a genius, Gary. He graduated last in his class.
But he's being polite
very
like
few
Ben.
people have
He's being
even
polite.
heard of.
Ben, he's being polite
Ben,
like
Ben. He graduated first with honors with multiple degrees. Just ask him.
Yeah,
Okay.
Mike got caught
Just
plagiarizing.
ask him. And the
several
thing
times.
is, that's what I mean. Anyone, like, they're talking about the 25th Amendment, the Republicans, and I laugh at that because it's a moot point. He hasn't been president since day one. We don't even need to go through the legal action. He is not running the country at all. Period.
Well, you took away but the next thing I wanted to talk about was the 25th Amendment, because I haven't heard anything from Republicans. And I would love to hear from Republicans. Remember, it was a spite thing that they did with Trump. Put this guy through a cognitive, put this guy, let's get his cognition skills, checked out by a doctor. They did it to Trump. Where is the spine of the Republican Party, Ben Stein?
There is no.
Where is it? Where is it? Well, let's see. I don't know. But as you and I have had the pleasure of discussing over the miracle of the cell phone, why aren't they demanding a cognition test? What possible bad is in there for them demanding a cognition test of an 88 or 98-year-old man who's obviously not right in the head and who's making serious mistakes? What does it hurt for him to have a cognition test? I mean, why would that hurt him? He's not going to be fired. Well, maybe he will be fired, but he does not need to be in there without a cognition test.
Oh,
And
he'll
we've
pass
had
it with
We
flying
Americans
colors, though.
demand it. We demand it.
Sorry, Gary?
He'll pass it with flying colors. Come on. The
Oh, what?
system's rigged. He'll pass it with flying colors. He'll come out with a 150 IQ and just
Right.
short of being Elon Musk.
Gary's right. They'll get some doctor to write whatever they want him to write. He's right.
He has a
Yeah, but
state-
I'd like to be the one who gives him the test. I want to give him the test. So I want to ask him some questions. I mean, I had a quiz show for a number of years. It was a very difficult. I think it's generally considered about the most difficult quiz show there has been in the U.S. I'll ask him the questions, and we'll see how he does.
I think that would be a great thing to start trending. Ben Stein gives Joe Biden a cognition test.
Yeah, I'd like to do
You
it.
would
I'd like
need
to-
about 150 takes, 150 breaks, and a lot of insure. And
a lot of
and-
paregoric.
and
If I may respectfully say this with great respect, I grew up near where Senator from, Senator Biden. He grew up, he was senator from a wonderful, small but wonderful state of Delaware. I grew up in Maryland, spent a lot of time in Delaware, and they have the best fried chicken in the world. I don't care where you go, you will not get better
Where'd
fried
you go?
chicken.
Rehoboth? Is that where you got it?
I used to get on the way to Rehoboth, not in Rehoboth, on the way to Rehoboth. And I would like to see, can Senator Biden, President Biden, make fried chicken? Can he do that? Can he do that? Let's start with that. Can you, President Biden, make fried chicken?
Well, maybe we can get Kamala Harris to make some.
No, she can't. She cannot do it. She cannot do it. She cannot do it. That would be insulting to her. And as a woman, to expect her to cook. We don't
What's
want
the matter with fried chicken?
It'd be
we don't
racially
expect her to
insensitive.
cook fried
Because
chicken.
she's a
Racist
black
that
woman.
makes fried chicken, okay?
Gary, it would be racially insensitive.
It'd be racially insensitive because Kamala Harris is black. Just
Um,
ask her.
yeah,
Even
she's
though-
I
as
know,
black as
Gary,
we're-
with the greatest respect to you, and
He's-
you know I love you like a son. She is not black. She is as black as I am. She is not black.
I think Gary was kidding around. Gary, somebody's curious as to what you're drinking, by the way.
Oh, I'm drinking a
Beer.
hard cider right now to keep myself light. And I'll give you the ingredients. This is how I'm natural. It's fermented apple juice. That's all it is. There's nothing
Why not?
added.
Why not? Why not? Well, but seriously, I think Judah is raising a good question. Here we are. We're, as of today, I think we are 2 months into President Biden's term. We don't know if the guy is playing with even 47 or 48 cards out of a 52 card deck. Maybe he's only playing with 46 cards.
And you're being
Why
generous.
can't we find out? What is that?
Well, you're not going
at
to
least
find
let's
out. man.
ask. Let's at least
Yeah.
ask.
But we have to face reality, Ben. The Republican Party's dead. It's worthless. It hasn't accomplished anything in decades. In fact, it sits there and just pontificates, spews forth its mouth, goes on Sean Hannity, raises money for themselves, and then goes home and itself goes into its basement. And that's just a reality.
Well, I'm not as pessimistic about the Republican Party as you are. My family, I've said this on many shows, that we not only was my father a Republican, not only was my mother a Republican, but my grandparents were Republicans, and so I think.
And Ben,
Well, we're Republicans too, but Ben, I'm talking about now. It's dead.
Ben,
I'm not saying before. I'm not saying under Nixon or under Reagan. Now it's finished.
Ben, with all due respect to your father, that you've shared with me a million stories about your father, I don't think he would recognize the Senate and the House that we have right now.
Well, he would not recognize much about what's going on in the country right now because he's no longer living. But he's the Republican Party is doing something. I mean, they fought against various proposals by President Biden. We just need a few more of them. If they were in charge, they might do more. You, my dear friend Judah, have correctly pointed out that my really, really dear friend Lindsey Graham promised to do a lot of things he didn't do, and the whole party promised to do a lot of things they didn't do. Maybe somebody can make them do new things. Oh, we're not going to get a new party started up now. How could we out of nowhere? We can't do it. It can't be done.
You know what? You never know. But on that note, if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. I want to thank everybody that's watching us on YouTube. I want to thank all the outpouring of support for our downloads on Apple Podcast. It's been extreme. It's been great. Please do it. It helps us a lot. Write your 5-star reviews. If you have them, everybody except one person in the chat, please. You don't need to. We are
someone in the chat who's saying mean things to us?
No. They're very kind. But and we're joined, of course, by simplelifenow.com. Gary Collins is welcome back as always. He's in a new Rush shirt. And It's funny, when the last time you brought up that you were going to wear a Rush shirt 20 times in a row, somebody thought you were referring to Rush Limbaugh when you were referring to the band Rush. Wow. Either way, it's cool. You get a sort of double homage.
Modern day warrior, mean pride.
And we're also joined by, sorry, Gary?
Ben, you know what? I want to comment to what you said, though. The only solution is a third party. The Republicans and Democrats are so absolutely corrupt to the bone. It doesn't matter who you elect anymore. The game's over. It's done. And until we get a third party, this country's over. I honestly think that.
I agree with you.
The funny thing about that is, we've heard that. I've heard that on this air many, many times. And I always appreciate and respect it. But life is great in America. Let's not kid ourselves. Life is great. I just had an incredibly fine dinner. I had an incredibly fine dessert. I'm drinking some incredibly fine herbal tea. I'm sitting in an air-conditioned room. Life in America is great. Yes, the future is questionable. But for right now, it's incredibly great. Why should people think they need a drastic change? Life in America for middle-class people like me is great.
We don't need a drastic change. What I've seen in the last 12 months is the fastest erosion of human rights in this country, period. People are sick of it. You're starting to see the edges starting to fray. You see a bunch of kids running out to Florida and partying, and now SWAT teams are being, released and gassing them. The odds of them dying from COVID are almost zero. Let the kids party. I feel like a prisoner in my own country now. You know what I mean?
Part of Florida, Gary.
Just so that people don't know, the story was today that came out today, where in Miami they wanted to cut down on spring breakers, so they set the curfew to 8 p.m. at night for the next 3 days. And I didn't know that, Gary, that they were spraying them with tear gas and they were sending out
I
SWAT.
don't think Gary's referring to Miami Beach. Miami Beach.
Yeah, Miami Beach.
You
Yeah.
aren't? Well, no,
Yeah.
Miami Beach is inhabited by a large number of criminals right now with guns and drugs and everything else. I think you're right, Gary, generally, but not with regard to Miami Beach.
No, Larry,
I'm
the
from Florida,
story.
I know. And I've been to Miami Beach this time of year. Okay, the people that walk down the street are lowlives. I mean, that's just a fact.
But Larry, the story is being reported even by Breitbart as being spring breakers coming down there. And that's why they're putting on the 8 o'clock curfew. So they could be reporting the story wrong, but that's the story right now that's going on.
Because, you know, I lived in Miami, now I'm in Boca Raton. You know, formerly I have a place there as well as elsewhere. But this is, these are not normal people that we're talking about on Miami Beach right now. They're a bunch of criminals.
Miami.
This is a very,
I've
very
always
good
said in
piece of
Miami.
data. Very good piece of data.
Yeah. I always
Like
said,
it.
if you want to find crime, just go to Miami.
And Ben, I want to raise a
Yeah,
point.
Miami Vice.
Yeah.
Ben, I want to raise an interesting question to you, because you keep on saying how great it is, but you've also
Great.
said, on the other hand, how we're demolishing the Constitution.
Yes,
So
it's
those-
going to take a long time.
So those two things don't actually always coincide with each other. People are living better than anybody else in the world, pretty much. But as far as the Constitution goes, and as far as the things they're implementing on us and pushing down on us, it isn't great. Great things aren't coming about. Larry and I were out last night at a nice
I am
dinner.
jealous.
At a nice dinner in an undisclosed location. And it was very interesting. Half the street were maskless. The other half of the street were wearing masks. You're sitting at a table not wearing a mask because somebody is an inch apart from you walking on the street wearing a mask. And we're living in total, it's almost like anarchy from the government. It's so chaotic. There is nobody in control right now.
Ben, it's
Wait a second. Let me go back to something. Many a time on this fine show, I have quoted from the greatest essayist of all time, Samuel Johnson. When the United States of America won the Revolutionary War and the British lost their colonies in North America, some very smart person said, "This is the ruin of the nation." And Samuel Johnson said, "Sir, there is a lot of ruin in a nation." And that is true of this nation too. It will, yes, things are being ruined by the Bidens as fast and the Kamala Harris's as fast as they can, but it's still going to take a while.
not just them. They are the reflection of what's happened to our society and our body politic. You get what you ask for. You asked for it, you got it. Toyota. And in my view, my reality is that society has gone so low that these people actually represent a big portion of this country. So it falls upon us. Even we are now the minority, and
who's we, paleface?
Well, white people and other people. Okay, we're the minority right now. Okay,
No, we're not.
Yes, we
Are
are.
you kidding? No, we're not. Not even close.
Not in terms of numbers, but in terms of status and influence and others.
That is
the European heritage of this country is not in control of the country anymore. Okay, the European concept, nor the concept, Judeo-Christian concepts of the 10 Commandments. It's not. Okay, and it was John Adams who said, doesn't matter how many times you change your rulers or your forms of government, without ethics, morality, and religion among the people, you will not have a lasting liberty. And that's why, Ben, you have it good now. I have it good. Judah has it good.
I'm not sure how good Judah.
But tomorrow,
Kidding.
we're not going to have it so good. Okay, it's because right now we're on our backs, and our children and grandchildren are going to really be living. They're going to be living in a socialist, if not communist, hellhole. In my opinion, that's my opinion. And
I want to ask you guys all this question, starting with Gary. When you turn on the TV, when you go outside, do you recognize it's America?
No.
That's a very good question.
And I live in.
I don't either. When I turn on and see crazy people, just crazy people running around, crazy people. I mean, it's unbelievable the craziness I see running around this. My glorious Southern California, which I love so much. My glorious California, which I love so much. My glorious America, which I love so much. It's just crazy. And I think might have mentioned this before. I'll mention it again if I may respectfully do so. My alma mater for college, Columbia, has six, or is going to have six separate graduation ceremonies for blacks, for whites, for women, for men, for transgender or gender fluid or whatever it's called. And I think what is rich, poor, all kinds of wacky things. What is that but actual screaming insanity? What is that?
And so going to that question, Gary, you know, as Ben likes to paint this picture, it's America we don't recognize. If we turn on the television, you and I, Gary, are monstrous sports fans, or we were. We don't, and so is Larry. But Larry, that's a different side note of your one and done thing. But maybe not. It's symbolic of the times, Larry. But Gary, do you recognize culture right now?
Well, watching the NCAA tournament, right? You know, I'm a big NCAA basketball fan.
Me too.
Have been all my life. And I tried watching this abomination of an NCAA tournament. It makes no sense. You know, I'm watching Syracuse with equality on the back of their uniforms. I'm watching guys who go to school for free. I had to pay for college. Hate to break it to these idiots. I had to pay for it. I have no potential when I went to college to get a multi-million-dollar deal playing a sport. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of it. It's rubbed in my face. And not only that, but I'm watching the stands are empty. The coaches have masks on. None of the players have masks on. They're sweating, spitting. No, not spitting on chair, not on purpose. And I played sweat. I'm all, this is nuts.
Harry, one factor that you're leaving out. These people aren't students that are playing NCAA basketball anymore. They're ringers. They're ringers.
Good point.
They deserve to be in school. They don't intend to be in school. And there was one fellow, Derek Johnson from Duke, who got injured this year, freshman. He said, "The hell with it. I'm out of here. I'm going to heal so I can be in the NBA draft." I mean, they've bastardized academics at my university, Duke. I rail on them nearly every single day. It's a disgrace. And Krzyzewski's become a whore. A total whore.
I've lost total respect for Krzyzewski.
And it's funny how people, it's really amazing how people that we used to look at before the Trump era, Ben, how you know, we used to look at certain journalists, and even though we didn't always agree with them, but we respected things that and people, you know, and I think of people like Bob Costas, who I grew up loving listening to. I grew up loving to listen to Bob Costas, or I admired Mike Krzyzewski, the coach of Duke. How they've become, you know, you look at the NBA, who is this all this Black Lives Matter stuff, but doesn't object to the concentration camps in China. And Ben, it's like we turned off the TV and turned it back on, and we're like watching it a whole new network.
Well, as you and I often discuss, life has become more and more like an episode of the Twilight Zone. I mean, the craziness that's going on in Los Angeles and Southern California schools in terms of teaching Bolshevism to children is just shocking. I saw and Oakland, which is a city in Northern California, well-known city in Northern California. There was a story just today in some high school. It had, I guess, 1,000, say roughly 1,000 students. One student was proficient in math. 1 out of 1,000. Yes, the teachers, big, fat, icky-looking teachers, are teaching the kids that they're being discriminated against because they're black, and that the problem is not them and they're being too lazy to learn, but the racist school system that's keeping them from learning. That is insanity. That is rank national socialism.
Not just that, Penn. You remember after Trump was elected that the elementary schools in Beverly Hills hired psychologists to counsel the kids because they were.
I didn't know that. I lived very near an elementary school. Yikes! I lived very near an elementary school, but I think by that time my son was already out of school.
And to answer somebody's question in chat, Marjake, we're not. Talking about something is not necessarily complaining about something, and talking about something you could actually come up with solutions. And it's actually, I was thinking about this today, guys, as I I'm not a big fan of Rick Scott, this Florida senator. And Ben, you could correct me on this. I'm sure Larry and Gary can too. Isn't it like when you look at and say he's a governor, isn't it like I look at Abbott with more esteem than I do any of the senators? I look at he's a person in high power of running a state. So I look at it as an assemblyman, a congressman, a senator, then a governor. And Rick Scott was the governor of Florida, and then he became a senator, which sort of shows me that, you know, this is it's sort of a guy that's he just likes being he likes having power.
You're right.
It's sort of like
power as a senator. I got to tell you, you're one of 100. You have no power, but you have press.
That's my point.
And you can prance around with your $5,000 suits and gold cufflinks and pins, you know, and be very impressed with yourself. But you have no power as a senator.
But Ben, shouldn't we like figure something? I know you're against term limits, but I mean, we got Dianne Feinstein, who's 91 years old.
I can't believe it. I thought she was 101 years old.
Who got somebody?
One of the
and
richest
people forget
people in
this.
Congress.
Aside from the Chinese driver that she had, the spy, didn't years ago she accidentally it was with it was either the Zodiac killer or the other California killer that she accidentally released information during a press conference that he was then able to bury the that it was like his shoes or something that he was able. They had the crown of his shoes and he chucked it off the bridge. And he was able to kill 3 more people. And because we live in a state like California, Dianne Feinstein she'll be dead but by the time she leaves.
She is effectively dead right now. I mean, her brain's going too.
Well, we have a lot of problems here in California, but I'm going to say again, life is great here in California.
For you.
You're right, Judah. It's not going to go on forever. It won't go on forever for me too. But it's not going to go on for me forever for a variety of reasons.
Let me raise a
point. Life in California is great. I mean, come on, Larry, be honest.
California is the richest state. It'll survive at least for a while, no matter what happens, because it's much richer than any other state. It's the most beautiful state in the country, no doubt about it. But you know, it's on the path of the rest of the country.
I mean, Ben, the homeless encampments that we have around our areas right now. It's again like you turned off the TV.
It's terrifying.
And you watched Escape from LA or Escape from New York, Gary.
The homeless scare me to death. Every night I'm scared that I'm going to wind up being one of them, and it really, really, really frightens me a lot. But I don't know what I mean. I don't know what to do about it. I have a very, very smart friend, incredibly smart friend. And she said to me, "You're not going to become homeless, Benji, or Ben, or whatever she calls me, because the homeless are mentally ill by and large, or they're alcoholics or drug addicts, and you're not mentally ill or homeless or a drug addict. You don't have the mindset that leads to mental illness, and therefore you're not going to become homeless. And I hope and pray this young woman is right. But there certainly are an awful lot of homeless. I don't know what can be done about that. What can be done about that? I mean, the Chinese would shoot them. The Chinese would just give them a bullet in the back of the head and bury them in a mass grave, and that would be the end of them. We don't do that here in America, and I don't think we should. I think it would be a startlingly horrible idea. But what do we do about it?
Okay, so getting back to that, we'll get back to that in a second. Thank you, people in the chat. It was the Night Stalker. If you just tuned in, you are listening to the world.
That's right. Gosh.
If you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. I want to thank everybody that's in the chat. We're joined tonight by simplelife.com now, found simplelife.com, Gary Collins, and of course, say it, sorry. And please sign up for our newsletters, benstein.substack.com. Gary, I get ours wrong. And of course, America's Lawyer, you can find them at freedomwatchusa.org, Larry Klayman. And I got to tell you something funny, as I was just thinking about it, that we had to think in our heads of all the serial killers that have come out of this great state. I was like,
is it big state?
And Florida.
Yeah, is it the Zodiac? Is it? But getting back to it, Ben, you keep on saying, what's the solution? Why not term limits being a solution?
There's no
Not a solution. That's
Why
a
not wear our underwear on top of our head? I mean, there's no evidence that term limits leads to greater prosperity or individual happiness than the reverse. There's just no evidence that it would help. And by the way, I don't think anything much the government can do, period, is going to help. Yes, government should feed the homeless, no doubt about it. They should feed them, and in my humble opinion, they should make them go to conservation camps or somewhere where they work. And I think work, generally speaking, makes people saner than almost anything else. So that's one. Two, I don't know that anything else government's going to do is going to make a big difference, but I think the stricter the better. In Asia, my wifey and I employ a very large number of Asians in our household, and they work like sons of bitches, and they are smart, hardworking, disciplined. They move up the economic ladder very fast. They are incredible people. The Asians will take over in this country. They will take over in the whole world. And this is, but because they work, because that's ingrained in their culture. But can the government do that? I don't think so.
no, and they don't ask for affirmative action. They
Right,
make it
exactly.
They mind their,
And by
they
the way,
mind their own, and they mind their
sorry,
own business. I have a Chinese American lawyer, his best lawyer I've ever had. Okay, minds his own business, does his work. When I ask him to do, he doesn't talk back. He's very respectful.
I want that guy's name and phone number, and don't give it to anyone else. And
Exceedingly
I will.
smart. Exceedingly
Well,
smart.
guys, I
Can I
don't
throw something out, Ben? Because Judah hit something, and I think this is a really good topic that you guys can sink your teeth into. Is that we have our politicians like to shoot their mouth off. They like to talk. They like to go on Hannity, pretend that they're doing something. Greg Abbott is another example. Now,
Is that Abbott and Costello?
The governor of Texas, okay? And, you know, he'll probably run for president in 2024. He's positioning himself for that.
Well, he's not going to run.
He's a good-looking guy. He's in a wheelchair, you know, which evokes Franklin Delano Roosevelt. But
Nobody remembers Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
Here's the bottom line. Illegal aliens are pouring across the Texas border as we speak. Many of them are from the Middle East. Many of them are carrying COVID-19, mutations of it that we don't even know the vaccines are going to work. Why is it that Abbott just gives grandstanding press conferences when he could send the Texas Rangers and the Texas National Guard down to the border and seal the border? And if the feds don't like it, take care of the feds too. It's your state. It's
Well,
not.
I want to go to somebody. Let Gary answer that, since he's a guy that's done all these positions. What are your thoughts on that? Because I agree with Larry, but why don't states governors take more responsibility sometimes?
Well, and what it does too is it erodes our freedom, because we have states to kind of guarantee that tyranny can't take over, right? From the top down, that the states can work independently and run their states independently. What it is the governors now are tied into the system, the big system, right? We live in an oligarchy. Let's be honest. Let's quit handy coding this crap. And the problem is they're getting kickback money. They're getting money from the Republican Party because the Republicans want illegals across just as much as Democrats.
I want them to what?
They want them to come across just as much as Democrats.
Cheap labor companies.
Because it's labor. Big Republicans and big corporations that are Republican leaning have hired illegal immigrants for decades.
U.S. Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah. Come on. I live in the real world, Ben. I worked it. I saw it firsthand. These people are pieces of crap. They are so corrupt. They tell you what you want to hear, and behind the scenes, they're screwing you just like the other side. And that's the problem, is none of these solutions are easy, but they're not going to solve any problems because they can't continue the beast if they solve the problems. Because then we're going to be going, what are you doing with all of our extra taxpayer money if you're solving the problems? You keep creating more problems, then you keep asking me for more money. That's what you do. You keep picking my pocket. So that's why the solution's never going to happen. That's what I mean. It has to be a third party. It has to be a party not attached to either side that decides that they're going to run and run for office for what it was intended.
And what could they do, Gary? suppose there were the Gary Collins party running Texas or Arizona or New Mexico or Southern California. What could they do? What could they do about all the immigrants coming across the border? Are they going
I just told you, Ben.
Yeah, just like Larry said, you go down there and you seal off the border and you start.
I'll tell you, Americans should go down there. They tried that a while back and people got arrested. But, we have the right to protect ourselves. We can go down to the border.
These are fantasy ideas. I mean, these are not real ideas.
Well,
we cannot send
real ideas,
down to
were they real ideas in 1776? People didn't think that
Sir, with the greatest possible respect, Counselor, we do not want to have our National Guard or our citizens going down there and shooting families.
No, I didn't say shoot anybody. I said defensively.
Let Gary back
kind
in for a
of
second.
proved my point, Ben. Here's why. Because if a state really wanted to solve the problems, they would tell the federal government to go pound sand, and we don't want to be your money. Go away. We're going to get rid of your border patrol agents, boot everyone out, and say we're going to take care of our own border. And they go, well, we're not going to fund your highways and your fine. I don't care. I don't need your money. The problem is the politicians are all in bed and they're getting the money. They're getting rich off it. All their buddies are getting rich off it. That's how the system works now. That's why.
But you're again. Let me respectfully say, we're talking. I think we're talking about the problem of an unprecedented wave of illegal immigration into the U.S.
Yeah.
Suppose we had the Gary Collins party running the southwestern U.S. What would we do? We're all
Just
members.
Like Larry said,
what do we do? What do we do to stop the illegal immigrants?
I would set martial law. I would get the National Guard down there. I would run all my law enforcement agencies. I would get them down there. I would actually enact state militias that are trained and run through law enforcement to help secure the border. That's what I would do. It's within my right as the governor to do that.
By the way, I'm starting a new party. It's called the New American Independence Party. I hope you consider to become part of it. Because
God bless you. I want to know what you catch these poor people.
Gary, he's asking you explicitly what don't sugarcoat it. You or Larry. Let's be real. I mean, we're talking about all hypotheticals here. What would you do? An immigrant comes to the border.
It's within our right. We can seal our border instantly. We go down there. Heck, if the state wasn't abiding by all the federal dollars, you can build your own wall within your own state and you can secure that border, and you simply line up buses. And when they come across, you throw them in the bus and you drive them straight back and you dump them off at a holding point and you go, there you go.
You drive them to where?
Come back.
Drive them to where?
Well, Trump actually worked this out, right? Wasn't Trump working this out with Mexico?
Yeah, Mexico was actually cooperating with us until Biden came along.
Well, then now you've answered my question. I didn't ask the question idly. I asked the question wanting an answer. And if indeed the nation of Mexico, the great nation of Mexico, has said we'll cheerfully take them back,
they did
we'll
say
make sure they don't come back to America again.
Well, and
that's fine.
And Mexico doesn't want this migration either because they come through Mexico. They're bringing disease. So if they know they can't get in, they don't go to Mexico either.
That's fine. So there's your answer. If we really have it promised from legitimate, hardworking, trustworthy people like the government of Mexico, then I think we can. We'll just bring them back to Mexico.
Well, no one said
Larry, hold on a second, Ben. During the Trump administration, they were actually doing this because the almighty dollar convinces a lot of people to do a lot of things. And we do have a lot of leverage over Mexico. We have a lot of leverage over Canada. We have a lot of leverage over certain places. And Trump did, in his major defense.
If they don't like it, we can close down all the Taco Bells,
Oh my God, Larry. Thank you, Shecky claimant. But Ben, you're all raising great points. Gary,
I'm not being a jackass. I could go down to the border and solve this problem in 60 days. It's not that complicated. It's not that hard. Nothing that our government needs to solve is that complicated. They don't want to solve the problems. That's
okay, Gary, love you like a child. In this school that I was just talking about a few minutes ago in Oakland, California, a high school of very roughly 1,000 students, one student One student was proficient in mathematics. So all black school, one student was proficient in mathematics. How do you solve that problem?
Edward James Almost.
Well, I'll tell you how, Ben. In
Almost.
Oregon now, they have a law that they're trying to pass, the radical left, that there's no absolutism in math. Okay, so
Yeah, right.
So that's how you solve it. So everybody is good at math.
Okay,
No,
let's
Ben,
have
I was
a
joking.
serious answer.
Ben, I was sort of
And
joking.
I'm
but
serious.
there's
That does exist. Dennis
I know.
Prager's been ranting about that for weeks.
I know that. Let's have a serious answer.
But
You
Ben,
know how you do it?
in
You get
LA
rid of
in the
Department
80s,
of
there was
Education.
that
Real simple.
movie called Stand and Deliver. Edward James Almost was based on a teacher that went into the schools and did raise the proficiency rate by, I believe, at least 30%. So, but they were honest, and they were honest about the issue, and it can't. But somebody just raised the point. We have to reteach teachers, right? Teachers need to be re-educated.
They don't want to be re-educated. That would be work for them. They don't want to be re-educated. They're in a union. They want to collect their money, get their lavish side fringe benefits. Then they want to retire early. They don't want to be. Sir, with great respect, the teachers in these inner city schools that have lots and lots of non-white students are well-paid people compared to any other teachers anywhere in the world. Why aren't they able to teach these kids to read and write and do sums? Why not? Will anyone answer the question?
Well, because the kids don't want to learn.
Right. Okay. Thank you. You have
Right,
answered the
let's
question.
also-
They're down in Miami Beach right now, busting the place up.
I mean, and Ben,
those aren't the same kids.
Ben, it's an
Well,
absolute
yeah.
breakdown in the family. I mean, let's be real. It's an absolute breakdown in the family. We
You
know
think
that.
so?
I mean, we know that's a huge case with these kids in schools. When all of us were growing up, there was a modicum of either your friend, if your parents were, you always had a friend that sort of had a what's the nuclear family. The nuclear family is almost dead in most.
Do you mean the nuclear family?
Yes, I'm sorry. The nuclear family is
Nuclear.
almost nuclear
Well,
is almost dead. And
Do you really, Judah? Come on, we've been friends now for over a decade. Do you really think that's the problem?
I'll give you two stats, Ben. I'll give you two stats. 70% of black children are born out of wedlock.
Right.
And here's another shocking stat.
Yes.
70% plus of black women are morbidly obese.
Yes.
Those
Okay.
are stats. I'm not saying that
now we're getting Gary. Now we're getting somewhere.
Hey,
that's
Now
what
we're
I
getting
just.
somewhere.
Ben,
And the
that's
entire-
exactly what.
And the
Ben,
entire
that's
city
exactly
of
what I just said.
Cleveland, and the
Sorry,
entire
go ahead.
city of Cleveland is morbidly obese. I lived there for a while.
Where's that at?
Hey, by the way, how do you find a good-looking woman in Cleveland? I was single at the time. Someone who's
I
weighs.
don't know. Is this a
300
joke?
pounds.
How do you do it? I don't know. What's the
You'll have
joke?
to-
I look for
you'll have to
somebody
meet-
less than 300 pounds who combs her hair.
Well, and what I'm saying though is I'm not doing that to poke fun.
We're
or
going to
say
get
things.
yelled at now for this, Gary, and it's you. I mean, Larry claiming it's your fault.
Well, I'm
Well,
telling
and
you,
what they
Sorry,
teach in
Gary,
these
go ahead.
schools, in these impoverished neighborhoods in poor areas, they're not teaching. They're teaching victimhood. That the reason you're here and the reason you're poor is because
Right.
you're a victim, and not because your family made bad decisions or your community is making bad decisions. It's because you're a victim, and
Right.
victimhood is the quickest way to end up in jail, not
Right.
fulfilling your
Right.
life's destiny,
Absolutely right.
and just
Absolutely
going
right.
through life blaming and waiting for a free handout. That's
Absolutely
the
right.
easiest way. And who wants them to have free handouts? Well, our politicians, because it creates voters, just like they want more illegals, more voters. Why do they don't want you to, present ID, which is the most asinine thing I've ever heard in my life, that having an ID and presenting it to vote is racist.
oh, it's not only they don't want you to. In California, it's illegal to ask for the ID.
Is that
It's-
true, Larry? I did not know that.
It is. I have a very good friend, a very famous writer.
You can stop right
Well,
there.
I won't use his name. He left the country because he said, I'm getting out of here after the election. He was at one time a liberal. He became a Trump supporter. He went in to vote in the last election. He said, you want to see my ID? And the woman said at the polling place, it's illegal for me to request it. No.
That's actually a good point. When I've shown up in public, to vote, I haven't had to show my ID in Los Angeles either. That's actually they asked me my address, my information, and I said I live here. They looked up, you know, the roll through the files, and they let me vote. There was there was absolutely nothing going on with asking me for my ID.
It's our
No, you're-
I'm really getting scared now, and I think I'm gonna go hide now for a while. But this is
We'll
like
protect
so
them.
the country is going to hell, and a large part of it is the lax attitude of the government, and a large part of it is the terrible, catastrophic state of the black population. But I'm an old guy. I'm your wait, maybe Larry's older. No, Larry's younger. The it was not always true that black Americans were in such terrible shape. Something happened to the black Americans to demolish them academically, family wise, scholastically, in many other ways. What was it? Was it drugs? Was it the absence of a church? What was it? What happened? What happened? And you're not, by the way, you're not allowed to talk about this. So we'll just say we're not talking about. We're talking about people on another planet. We're not allowed. To
I think a lot could be attributed. I mean, to the welfare state. With
Oh, we've lost your
without a doubt, I
audio
think that
because
plays a heavy role in it. You know, for the more amount of kids you have, the more
Sorry,
amount of children you have, the more. Sorry,
we're losing your audio, sir.
I am very sorry if you're losing my audio
you're back.
now. Can you hear me back?
Well, at least
Sorry,
we're using our mind.
I live in a building. Wi-Fi is, as Gary knows, in RV parks and buildings on a Saturday night. People are,
We're watching
you know,
porn.
they're watching you porn. But getting back to it, Ben,
What
I
is
said,
you porn?
but Ben, I said it's the welfare state. You know, when you get
I don't
more,
know either.
when you get more money for a kid that's when you get more money per child, when you don't need to, when expectations are taken away from people, there's no worse form of abuse.
You know, we're really going to be in terrible trouble. It's very lucky nobody watches this show, because if anyone did, we would all be arrested on our way home tonight.
And if you just,
Well, you remember Andrew Breitbart? He didn't make it home from a bar several years ago.
Right.
And if you just tuned in, you are listening to The World According to Ben Stein. As my audio keeps on going in and out, I apologize for that. But we're here with Gary Collins. We're here with Larry Klayman. We're here with Ben Stein. Can you guys hear me? Anyone? I want to tell you, I was watching a documentary, and Ben, you could really, I want to just get off this for eight or 9 minutes to talk about something fun on a Saturday night. I was watching, and as we're in California, Gary, in LA, and Larry knows this sometimes too, you know, there's still that Capitol Records building, you know, the Capitol Records store that they.
It looks like a big record.
And it's heartbreaking, or as Ben's wife, he would say, it's heart-rendering. And I was watching this documentary called The Last Blockbuster. There's one more Blockbuster video in America, in Bend, Oregon. And I couldn't help but think, you know, as we've progressed so much, supposedly, you know, and you ask sometimes, what's the problem? I sometimes think it's that we've lost the little things. We've lost the little things. We've lost going to the video store. We've lost going to the music store. We've lost we've lost our way. Just me personally.
Okay, none of us agrees with that, so we'll go on to the next thing. What? Let's.
You don't think what, Ben? You don't.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Of course, you know, we're kidding. Of course, we think there's a lot to that. The daily grist of life is very, very important, and I agree. I miss all the daily grist of life in my beloved Silver Spring, Maryland. When I grew up there, it was a small town. It was a charming border state, charming small town. Now it's a huge, gigantic suburb with all kinds of diversity, and of course, the diversity has just about killed it dead. But but you're right. The grist in the mill is very important. That grist is super vital.
And I was informed it was Tower Records, but I know somebody like you, Gary. You missed those certain stores that have been taken away from us because
Tower Records is right down at the bottom of Orange Street.
That's what I was referring to, but it's nothing inside. It's just a holding spot. Right. For places that lease or do.
When I was a kid, I used to go with my dad in Philadelphia to the record store, And they had these booths where you could actually listen to records before you decided whether to buy one.
Yeah.
Now you have to buy things, online or whatever, and you really don't know what you're getting, which pretty much
Well-
metaphor for the entire world. We don't know what we're getting.
Well, we had a pretty good idea when we voted for Mr. Biden what we were getting, which was the hollow man. We are the hollow
We
man.
were getting a plagiarizing moron. We unfortunately, American people didn't care because A, there was election fraud, and B, Trump pissed so many people off, they voted against him rather than for anybody else.
Yeah, but the media tricked them and lied to them and cheated them in every way you can possibly imagine.
But Gary, what about you? I want to get to you on this one because you look like a guy that likes those types of stores.
Love them. And I was talking, it's funny you bring that up. I was talking to someone today about that where I grew up in a very small rural town, and the only news you got was at 5 and at 10, and it was 30 minutes, and it was pretty regional. They would get into some world politics real briefly, but that was about it. And my drugstore, which was where you got your prescriptions, the only place in town, was also the convenience store, the record store, the magazine shop, and that's where you bought your toys. I mean, that was it. And to this day, I'm good friends with the pharmacist who I grew up with as a kid.
That is a good friend to have.
Yeah, well, and the thing was, when I went there, we would go through the records every week or so because we didn't know new music was coming out. I would see a new record, I go, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And you'd buy it, and it was a big deal. You'd go home, your friends would all come over. You'd put it on the record player, you'd fold it out, you'd look at the lyrics, you'd see all the pictures, and it was an event. Just buying that record.
Yes, and I'm older than you are, and I used to ride my bike in Philadelphia, suburban Philadelphia, to a place called Mapes. It was a pharmacy, it was a drugstore, it had a soda fountain. I would go down there if I had $3 to buy a new baseball bat, that kind of thing. And I used to sleep, I had a tent across the street. I lived in Penn Valley, and we'd sleep with my friends at night in a tent. Now, if you have kids, would you let your kids sleep outside in a schoolyard? They wind up with their throats slit.
Are you going to be there? But Ben, it's, you ask, what's the problem? I really believe we've taken away from our children this form of excitement, this form of, there's something very special about going with your mom or your dad or somebody in your family. Remember, we were talking about Toys R Us.
Oh.
And going as your teen. And you remember the video stores that had the little chains on the certain section of the video store, and there was this thing about growing up that I don't think exists much more for children. This idea of amazement, of finding places, of finding new things. Everything is just all access, and I'm not trying to. The cat's out of the bag. We can't go back, Ben. But I really think there's a certain sadness that we don't have these things anymore.
No, you're right, Judah. And one reason is security. I mean, you let your kid out and you don't keep track of them, he'll never come home again, or she.
Yeah. Well, we just go endlessly back the Black community, and we just have a terrible, terrible problem with them. They are not learning. They tend to be, not all, of course not all, tend to be violent, tend to have screwed up families, tend to use drugs. And this is a big percentage of the nation's population, and it's a rapidly growing percentage of the nation's population. And I do not know what the solution is, but I believe that
here's the irony,
the Black
Ben.
church used to save Black people, and I think it could again.
Here's the irony, is that the Black population is now in control of the country.
In large measure, that's true. That's why I'm happy to say that I think it's great that Black people have been given full political rights. I can remember vividly when they were treated as non-persons, but I am scared that the Black leaders we have controlling Mr. Biden do not love America.
Well, I think that's a given. It's absolutely terrifying. But I want to ask each of you for our Saturday Night Special before we leave, but What is one thing, Ben, you've shared with me a lot of stories about your childhood, about going to the one of the first McDonald's, a burger costing
in Langley Park.
A burger costing you 2 bits,
No, 15 cents. A big
McDonald's.
burger, 15 cents. For 2 bits, you could buy a Cadillac.
What are 2 bits? I always assumed there were 2 pennies.
No, it's a quarter. It's a quarter.
2 quarters, you can buy a Cadillac. But don't you think that, when you share those stories, what are kids going to share now? That they were on their iPhone messaging people, that they were ordering something off of Amazon, that they were part of like a group chain of things. I mean,
I just hope that they're not sharing that they got drugs at a very early age from someone in their class, and that's what really scares me. I very much hope that they don't share that at the age of 12 they got knocked up. I mean, I'm scared about what young children are like. My son, our son, a wonderful kid whom we love a lot. I think I had great childhood memories because we were able to send him to a very good boarding school in New England. Not everybody has that opportunity, but to the extent that you can do anything like that, I think you're doing your child a big favor.
Gary, what do you think? What would you love? One thing to bring back?
Oh, there's so many. I would just go back to the 70s. That's it. Just when I ran wild, had to be home by dark. I remember my parents standing in the front yard, my dad yelling. I lived in the middle of nowhere, and I could hear him yelling from miles around, and I knew that was time to go home. And I got home, and I wasn't in trouble. I didn't have an iPhone. We ate dinner together. We talked together. We had conversations. And I think people need to get back to that. Life is about the people you meet and the relationships you have, and it's not about the things you acquire. If we get back to that.
That's very, very good. I like that. That's very, very good.
What about you, Larry?
That's a really hard question, but I will say that things were simpler in those days, and you appreciated things more. People don't appreciate things anymore. And in today's world, I mean, the kids can't even speak. I mean, everything is like.
Oh my God. No, that's frightening. It's frightening. It's frightening how ignorant young people are in America. On the other hand, I know some young people who are incredibly smart. And so the prime example of them does not happen to be an American, but there are some very smart people in America. And it's just, I don't know. We have to just pray. Dear God, please help this great America to stay great. And please, 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 please keep Mrs. Kamala Harris far away from the Oval Office.
Well, keep them all away from the Oval Office. I always say,
when I do my podcast, it's a euphemism, but I say God helps those that help themselves. And if what we're going to do is be entertained by the scandal industry and turn Hannity on every night, put your feet up on a coffee table. This is the subtitle of my book, Forget the Scandal Industry. The primary title is It Takes a Revolution, which you can get at Amazon.com. I couldn't resist.
Say the name again.
It Takes a Revolution. You wrote the foreword, okay?
Oh, wait, sorry.
You wrote the recommendation. But
what's the name of it again? We forgot.
It Takes a Revolution.
And where can you buy it?
Amazon.com, Barnes and Noble.
Who's the author?
Who's the author? I was just about to ask that.
Anonymous Larry. What I'm saying is this, is that if all this is entertainment, watching Fox News, get up off the couch and do something. God helps those that help themselves.
I think that's great.
Gary, where can people find you in your books about talking about living a happy off-the-grid life?
Not just off-grid, just living a happy, simple life in general. If you want to go off-grid, I got that too. TheSimpleLifeNow.com, and make sure to check out The Simple Life with Gary Collins podcast. It's awesome.
And people could find it is awesome. And people could find Ben Stein and Parlor at Ben Stein. And of course, they could find them on spectator.org. Don't forget to look at Larry's, it's a very important page. Larry is America's lawyer. Don't forget to look at freedomwatch.org. It's worth the donation. So Larry could have a constant stream of pins on his blazers and keep writing books. And Ben Stein, you led us out in prayer, but if you'd like to lead us out in song on this fine Saturday night, you're more than welcome to do that.
Well, you know I can be found sitting home all alone. The way I got the oil, the bebopalula, she's my baby. Bebopalula, I don't mean baby. Bebopalula, she's my baby. Bebopalula, I don't mean maybe. Bebopalula, she's my baby now, my baby now, my
You're Lady Gaga in a
She's the
skirt.
woman in the red blue jeans. She's the queen of all the deeds. She's the one woman that I know. She's the woman walks around the snow. Bebopalula. Anyway, that's the way
Okay,
it
hold
was
on a
when we were
second.
young.
Hold on a second. I want to wish Rock Breath a happy anniversary.
Happy anniversary,
I
Rock
want
Breath.
a 23rd anniversary in California. That's like 150 years. I want to thank everybody that's been listening in the YouTube channel. I want to thank everybody for downloading our podcast. I want to thank everybody for contributing. I want to thank Gary Collins. I want to thank Larry Klayman, and of course, America's humble servant and America's teacher and doctor, Benjamin Jeremy Stein. We will see you Tuesday night. Everybody have a great and wonderful night.
God bless you all, and God bless America.